Welcome to Every Dollar Accounts with Josh and Jay, a shot of truth serum for your investment and insurance questions. I'm Josh Knoll, the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Jay Stubbs, Director of the Gulf Coast for First Protective. We are brought to you on the Gulf Coast Financial Advisors Podcast Network. Jay, how you doing, buddy?
Josh, I'm good. It's good to be back in studio. It's spring. The April showers have brought May flowers. The weather is nice outside. I'm not looking forward to that heat that I see around the corner.
It's coming soon, buddy. The humidity, cut it with a knife down here in lower Alabama. So, Jay, for this episode, we're going to discuss something that is near and dear to both of our nerd hearts, technology, specifically related to how our respective firms make this technology available to our investors and our clients. We're going to focus a little bit on the beginning investor. And I want to make sure I clarify that statement. When I say beginning, I don't necessarily mean somebody that is just starting out in their investment journey. And a beginner could be somebody that actually has done a good job of accumulating assets, or in your particular case, an advisor that's done a good job of accumulating clients, but maybe has reached a point where they're like, hey, I've got to get a handle on all of this stuff. I've got 20 different things going 100 different directions, either with my accounts or, again, in your case, with advisors and their clients. How can I utilize technology to help get a better handle on these things, to more streamline my operations so I can service my clients in a better way without putting this artificial technology boundary between me and them? So that's what we're going to talk about today in our respective firms. But before we dive into all that, though, we're going to have our friends from Sloth Racer kick us off. Quick housekeeping for compliance. Jay Stubbs and First Protective are not affiliated with Prime Capital Investment Advisors, Qualified Plan Advisors, or Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. And me, Josh Knoll, is not affiliated with First Protective.
But
Jay,
we do business together.
But we do, yeah, and we're buddies. Now, Jay, you've got something you want to lay out on this episode. We're going to talk about tech.
Yeah, we are. And for a lot of folks, tech's in your hand. Tech is helping you listen into this podcast right now because you subscribe to it on your device. I'm 98% sure all of the people are listening to them on their devices. They walk around their house or drive down the road. But there's more than that, right? So we use tech in our business. And Josh, the statement I'm going to give you is to effectively drive revenue, you need integrated platforms that streamline workflows and accelerate processes. You need to have tools that are designed to improve yours, Josh Knoll's, Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, to improve yours and your business's processes. And that's ultimately helping you serve your clients in a better way. So I know that you've worked on this really hard for the last couple of years. It's really interesting to see the things that you have built and developed. Some things are third party, some things you've done on your own. Tell us a little bit about what a client can expect when they are signed up, if you will,
right,
to invest it in you, and you're going to help them with their stuff. They're now doing business with Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. Right. What happens next?
Well, so Jay, let's start very briefly at the beginning. So, I built my practice and have been in the industry. I came up kind of the old school way, and I'll save the full story of that. But that means historically a lot of paper-driven processes. And quite honestly, Jay, just to again be open and honest like we are in this podcast, a lot of the client accumulation I did in the beginning was done out of the fact that they liked me, had a little charisma, worked hard, hustled, and gave them a lot of attention. Well, that's fine when you've got a handful of clients, a few dozen clients. That's tough, man, when that number starts climbing up there. Like I have seen on my practice, and particularly on your side of the business with the advisors you serve, we're talking dozens, multiples of clients that have needs and want to have attention. So what we have really focused on the last couple of years, and particularly this last year, as we, COVID kind of had the effect of really making not only tech important, but also driving a significant amount of growth in our industry, is finding the tech tools that don't just serve me, but serve me and the client, and it's mutually beneficial. So what I want to do, Jay, is I want to talk about a few particular tech tools that I use in my practice with Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. And then if you don't mind, I'd like to hand it over to you. And you've got some great tools that I've used over the years in your role with First Protective and serving advisors like me. So the first thing I'm going to talk about in my regard is, for my line of work, when you're talking about an independent, locally owned, independent financial advisor practice, Among the multiple functions that we serve, a lot of the things that people are going to recognize off the bat is we have investment management clients and we have financial planning clients. And a lot of times those two will overlap. So let's talk about the investment management client. That's somebody that comes in, maybe they roll a 401k or they open up an IRA, and they've got a Schwab as our custodian. They've got the ability to look at their Schwab statement. But as you pointed out this morning when we were doing prep work, the Schwab is a great site, but it can look a little institutional. It can be a little intimidating.
Yeah, a lot of numbers and a lot of percentages and a lot of decimal points. And, it can be overwhelming to somebody who just wants to know how much money have I got in this thing and what's my growth rate year to date and how have I done since I've been in it?
Right. Yes. How do you distill that down? How do you actually get your handle on it? So one of the things that our investment management clients have really enjoyed onboarding and getting to learn and help to facilitate the growing relationship between me and them has been our use of a client portal tool called Orion. Now, the podcast is not to be a sales pitch for Orion. It's meant to give someone an idea of if you're looking at bringing on professional guidance and you're looking at getting your arms around your different investments and different accounts, our client-facing tool is Orion. Orion gives you exactly what Jay just said. You can go in, you can look at your different accounts, you can look at what's the performance been, you can look at the allocations, you can see how much you have in fixed income, how much you have in equity, so on and so forth. And that helps you keep your finger on the pulse without getting too far deep into the weeds, unless you're somebody that wants to get into the weeds. We have other tools. Orion, go ahead, Jay, you had a question?
I was just going to say, and years ago it was you'd get these quarterly statements in the mail and you'd say, what the heck is this? I need to call my advisor.
Right.
Well, now you're logging in whenever you want, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, seeing close of the days, trading values, where you stand. And if you've got a question, you can then initiate that question and conversation with your advisor, such as you.
Well, you bring up a great point, Jay. I mean, think about that just from a competitive nature. We're going up against the apps of the world in our line of work, right? The Robin Hoods and the Betterments and all that. And if we're still just relying on a quarterly statement to keep our clients up to date, forget it. I mean, you're going to lose a lot of people that want that information at their fingertips, which is exactly what Orion allows you to do. It allows you to have the information at your fingertips, but you're not navigating it by yourself because you've got an advisor as a guide by your side. Part of that Orion client portal tool, some of you advisors that are listening to us, or maybe some of you clients will recognize Black Diamond. They are kind of a competitor to Black Diamond. Now, a lot of times when folks would use the Black Diamond type of reporting tool, they would bring in a financial planning tool alongside that, such as an eMoney or Money Guide Pro. Now, we still have access to those systems. What we have been finding some success with is utilizing Orion's built-in financial planning tool. It's called Advizr, Adivzr. So they take out a vowel there and replace the Z with the S with a Z. And what does Advizr do in relation to Orion? So Orion is really going to service the investment management clients. Somebody that's just got an IRA with you, wants to see how you're performing. Maybe they're trying to generate either capital appreciation or trying to generate some income from it. They're going to have a good idea there. Advizr is going to take it to the next level, and it's going to show you, well, how do my investments tie into the rest of my financial plan? What's that look like with my mortgage, my other debts, maybe my credit cards, my business, my projections, all these things. It'll tie all that tool together. And again, back to your point, Jay, it's at a client's fingertips, and we feel like that has proven to be a game changer, something that all the clients have really taken to because it's incredibly easy to use. It's intuitive. And again, you're not navigating this stuff on your own. You got an advisor by your side.
For example, if it within your planning tool within the Orion platform, so if it's Advizr or if it's Money Guide Pro or eMoney, any of those financial planning tools, and something happens in your overall financial life, for instance, you finish paying off your home, that's an item that you would then tell your advisor, hey, I've just finished paying off my home. I'm at the age of 62. I was supposed to do that at 65. That's going to have an impact on my overall plan. So then you'll go and make the adjustment in that planning software.
Yes.
So, and that's a big deal.
Right. And Jay, I'll go even one step further. Depending on how deep a client wants to go with Advizr, you can actually integrate all of your different accounts to tie it directly into there. So Advizr will have already been alerted to the fact that this balance was paid down or there's more money in this account. If you want that level of transparency, you can have this thing working for you 24/7 with up-to-the-date numbers that shows how your plan is going. For example, what's a real-world example? A lot of times we'll get asked, hey, I'm getting ready to retire in a couple of years, and I want to spend X amount of dollars on remodeling my house or my kitchen. Should I do that out of this pile of money? Should I take a loan? Whatever it may be. Well, obviously, everybody's individual situation is different, But with Advizr, we can actually go in and plug all that stuff in, integrate it all, and we can look at mathematical probabilities of going different directions with that plan. Along that note, Jay, I've got two other quick pieces of financial tech. We've been utilizing an information gathering system called Precise FP. Again, so far so good. We've been really happy with it. It allows us to digitally collect people's risk tolerances, fact finders, do onboarding questionnaires, and then, as part of important as any of this, do satisfaction surveys. You want to think you're doing a good job. Hopefully the client thinks that, but can we actually quantify, are you doing a good job, or are there areas for you to improve? Particularly with the digital fact finder, we've been really satisfied with that. It's robust. I mean, it's there. Historically, Jay and I have been doing this, both of us, for many years. A lot of times you would sit across from a client and you would handwrite these things out. And there's value to that. There's value to the human connection. But sometimes that fact-finding process can get pretty onerous and can get pretty lengthy. Not that the digital fact finder is going to completely eliminate all of that, but it just gives you a one-stop source to basically a bucket to put these things in. You can put it in your own time frame. We don't have to complete it all at once and then do this monster fax or document drop off. And you can pick and choose what items you want to share and what you don't. It doesn't hold up the process. And that's been a great thing that we've been able to tie into the client portal and the financial planning system.
The fact finders are so important, and they help the advisor community, whether you're working with Josh, Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, or any advisor. Make sure that they're doing a fact finder on you. That's our fiduciary responsibility to you and to your overall planning and your goals. Without that, we could be making, for lack of a better term, bad advice because we don't know the whole story. Two examples that I'll give: somebody will come in and say, "Hey, I need $1.5 million of life insurance coverage." Great. Where'd you come up with that number? I don't know. Sounds good.
My buddy told me that's what I needed.
You're going to say we need to do an assessment there and a
Right.
needs analysis to determine that might be that 1.5 is the right amount. The other one is somebody brings you $200,000 because they just sold a piece of property and they say, "Hey, invest this and just do with it what you want." You can't.
Right.
You have to do a risk tolerance, and you have to find out what other investments and what their experience is before you do anything with it. So understand that these years ago, folks listening, it was a stack of paperwork that Josh would show up
Right.
and he would say, "Okay, carve out 2 hours. We got to go get this stuff done. I got to fill it all out. You got to sign here. You got to initial this. Some of that still has to happen, but it is so consolidated now, and it's been digitized so that Josh, any other advisors working within his firm, they can send you a link. You can knock that stuff out and while you're sitting at your desk or on your phone, and he's got all the data he needs to then implement his planning and his strategies for you.
Oh, 100%. It's so much easier just to click and place a file, download a file into the fact finder, as opposed to trying to print that thing out and drop it off. So, and then Jay, one last piece of tech that is obviously not specific to Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, but I think is important, and I want to make sure I explain this properly and quickly, is QuickBooks. Now, I am not a QuickBooks expert. I have been using QuickBooks now, I'm embarrassed to admit, but gosh, 23 years, back when it was just a very simple database. But I always encourage my business owner clients and even my individual investors, get the online version of QuickBooks, get that integrated with the other accounts. It's actually going to give you real numbers of where you stand, what's your personal profit and loss, what's your business profit and loss. It makes filing taxes considerably easier to have all that in. QuickBooks is a great tool that we encourage people to utilize, and I have at least enough expertise, and I'm willing and able to help someone get kicked off on that if they have no experience with that. So Jay, that's my 4 pieces I wanted to highlight. That's obviously not all of our tech stack, but our client portal, client interface with Orion, our financial planning tools, Advizr being one of them, Precise FP, which really streamlines the data gathering and part of this, and then QuickBooks, which helps people really figure out what am I actually bringing in and what am I actually is going out the door. So now I want to pivot to you because, just to be, again, kind of open and honest, my affiliation or my use of First Protective and the tools back when I was coming up on the insurance side was really critical to my early success because I had come out of an environment where things were fairly archaic, fairly paper-driven, and now I'm getting into a world where I can actually bring on risk management clients. We can go through an electronic process and we can service them, and we can literally cut out weeks in the process of getting them the tools and the products that they need. So Jay, I'm gonna kick it to you. Let's talk about a few of the highlights, a few of the things you have in your role with First Protective.
There's going to be two that I talk about. One is the efficiencies of getting application for coverage taken care of in a quick manner. That's called the Vive platform. There's also a subset of that of knocking paperwork out quickly, and that's DocuSign. I'm going to talk about that. Before I go into those, for those advisors that may be listening, I'm a big fan of a platform called Virtual Sales Assistant. Which is a non-carrier specific educational content platform. It gives the advisor the opportunity to go pull up whatever non-carrier, no company sponsored material, but fully updated and integrated with current tax laws and legislation, that if I have a question about any number of financial topics, I, as an advisor, can go into that and I can pull up a one-pager and I can email it to you, Josh, to give to a client, or I can send, people can go grab that stuff from my landing page website. It's got plenty of PowerPoint presentations. It's got checklist items. You've got your own fact finder. This has a series of fact finders that include lots of different aspects of planning, inclusive of property and casualty, not inclusive of property and casualty. Great resource there, Virtual Sales Assistant. I've been a user of it for 20 years, and it gives me the chance to give educational material to anybody that's looking for it, whether they're an advisor, an agent, or even a client, a consumer looking for input on what's the definition of this, what are the different types of annuities, what's the difference between universal life and whole life, what's the differences between term and permanent life insurance, how does disability insurance work, how does long-term care, what are all the different ways we can get long-term care protected. That's unique. And then the client-facing platform, the website that we use for my contact is jstubbs.com. That is a prime example of what Virtual Sales Assistant offers you. Is you get a series of life guides, financial concepts, worksheets, strategies, all of it in one click of a button. And the neat thing about it, for those that are listening, it's not any one company sponsoring it.
Right.
It's all just the content that I have signed up for through Virtual Sales Assistant, and it's great. Now, let me dovetail real quick and ask you a quick question, and then it gives me a chance to bring in a solution. How did you used to take a life insurance application on somebody 10 years ago?
Well, you had to schedule a meeting, right? And you had to bring a stack of paperwork. Depending on the carrier and depending on the product, that stack of paperwork could be very, very large. And a lot of people think that all insurance carriers are created equal when it comes to paperwork. That's not the case. And typically, more often than not, you had to hunt through and figure out where the heck you need to fill out data and where you needed to have it signed. And 9 times out of 10, you still missed a daggum signature when it was all said and done. You would then take that paperwork and you would fax it. Eventually, at some point, you had the ability to scan and PDF it, but in the old days, we would fax it in. It would go to somebody's fax machine, then they'd have to process it, and then they'd send it to the carrier and the underwriter. They'd reach out via phone, and they'd have a call, and then they'd have a nurse. And then if all went well, you would issue a policy. The policy would come via paper, it would come in the mail, snail mail. And then you would have to set up a delivery. You would go to the client again. You'd have them sign some more paperwork. You would hope you got that stuff right because that's how you got paid. And then you would send all that back in and hopefully everything shook out. It was incredibly paperwork intensive, which combined paperwork and human beings, particularly agents and advisors, which are notoriously terrible at paperwork. More often than not, you had all kinds of headaches. So that was what it was like.
And those consumers, the clients listening to Every Dollar Counts podcast that have been through an insurance application process, you know exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. Well, guess what? Fast forward to 2020 and 2021 and beyond. Now there are platforms that the advisor and the agent community have access to, where if you need to update your insurance coverage or add an existing policy or what have you, you simply go online and you fill out some documents or some information for Josh, or he sends you one of his fancy forms from his new Precise
That's
FP.
right.
Once he has that very limited data, he can then input the information into a platform. One is called Vive, the other one's called iPipeLine, and in a matter of minutes, you're in the system. He never has to come and get a signature from you or take time out of your schedule, your family, your business operations. He can apply online. Now, the insurance companies and those platforms, they're now taking that information with your permission, of course, and they're grabbing the prescription history, those medicines you may take. They're grabbing your motor vehicle report history. They're grabbing something called the MIB, Medical Information Bureau history. And if all of that's clean and good, and Josh has said this person needs $1 million, they'll approve you at preferred rates right there on the spot. Now, you've got to be fairly healthy. You've got to have no issues going on medically that an underwriter might have questions with. But they can put you into this platform and move you right along. Now, if something does come up, you are taking a prescription med, then that process will revert to traditional underwriting, and that doesn't mean anything more than you have to do a paramed exam, and they still have to knock that out. But the likelihood of you getting quick, accelerated underwriting is high because of all the data that we now have. On the other side of that coin is the paperwork that you need to use or to sign in order to place a policy in force. There's delivery requirements, there's a bank draft form, those types of things. Well, now we have access to DocuSign.
Right.
That allows for you to send an electronic package for somebody to say, click here, I'm signing all of these areas. Go ahead and send this back up to the insurance company and let's place this puppy in force.
Absolutely. And can you imagine the scenario that we laid out the old way, Jay, of trying to do that during COVID?
It would have happened. It would not have happened.
Right. I mean, the technology is one of the reasons that our practice was able to actually, not just persevere, but actually grow during this time, because we had the ability to interact and service our clients electronically while still maintaining the human element. Well, Jay, I'm going to give you the final word before we wrap this one up. It's good stuff.
So we've just covered a brief list of the digital tools that help accelerate and make business of financial advising and wealth management and risk management easy. And you need to be looking for advisors that can do things for you in an efficient time, not taking away from your family and your business. Understanding that the planning, that does take some time, but when it comes to the transaction, let's knock that stuff out. Josh, you've done a great job of accelerating that and building and streamlining your workflow. Got your business model improved and continuous to improve, which is only going to help you better serve your clients today and beyond.
That's right. Because I don't have patience, Jay. I hate paperwork and I have no patience. All right. Well, listeners, if you'd like to continue this conversation about any of these topics, you can always call us at 251-327-2124. Or you can go to our website, my website, gulfcoastfa.com, and you can make an appointment there on my Calendar app. To all you independent and semi-independent advisors and agents out there hearing the value that Jay Stubbs could bring to your practice, and let me tell you from personal experience, it's significant. You can find him and reach him at jstubbs.com. That's JAYSTUBBS.com. So another show in the can. Many thanks again to our producer, Johnny Gwynn, down here in Deep Fried Studios, downtown Mobile. Thanks to my co-host, Jay Stubbs. And just as always, a huge shout out to all of you that have joined Jay and I on this journey, and to those of you that are joining us now. Do me a favor, please subscribe on the Apple Podcast app or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And while you're there, you would be doing us a huge favor if you would rate and review the show. It helps other listeners like you find us. Lastly, you like the show music? Go check out slothracerband.com. That's slothracerband.com. And they're going to take us home now. This has been Every Dollar Counts with Josh and Jay. Advisory services offered through Prime Capital Investment Advisors, LLC, PCIA, a federally registered investment advisor. PCIA, doing business as Prime Capital Wealth Management, PCWM, and Qualified Plan Advisors, QPA. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is independent of Prime Capital Advisors. Information presented is for educational purposes only, is not an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. All investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, be sure to consult a tax professional before implementing any tax or investment strategies.